Hello, welcome to the Refugee Data Center training modules for vocational training, professional recertification, and on-the-job training. At this point, you should have already seen the general overview presentation. If you have not, please view that first before viewing this module. Now, we're going to look at vocational training first. We're going to go to an existing client. We're going to search for the client. We've got Steve Rogers here. We've already done the intake. Let's go to the services. Now, here, if they were not already in vocational training, this is where you would add new services. You would pull from the drop-down menu, RSS Vocational Training, then click on Add New Services. As it is, this client has already been logged into vocational training or entered into vocational training. And we'll be viewing the data that was entered. So this client's eligibility start date, in this case, when they entered the U.S. as a refugee, was October 16th, 2013. We've got the case manager listed. For vocational training itself, you can see that a service start date was entered as 3/12/2014. When you do that, you can write those numbers in, or you can use the calendar feature. This client participated in what was generically referred to a commercial training course. Ordinarily, you would have a more specific term, as in, let's say, Certified Nursing Assistant Training number 1. There may be a number 2 or number 3. Or Welding 1, or Welding 2, whatever the case may be. And those training activities, those different ones, you would add using the admin screen. That's where you as a site administrator for your agency would be able to enter information regarding training courses, where they're held, etc. The start date for this training was 04/01/2014, and the end of this training activity was May 2nd, 2014. You can choose different end reasons. Let's say class canceled or completed activity, drop because they were ill, they moved, quit. But in this case, we would say this, dropped. We chose completed activity. Now, for the purposes of this client, we said that that was the only course they were going to participate in. And after the client completed that activity, when you did a needs assessment following up on the completion of the activity, saw that it was the only activity planned, and they were ready to move on to the next services, which may be referred back to job placement assistance to help find a job in the area of training. Either way, the vocational training was closed. We put a close date of the 5th, and that was the date they completed all vocational training activities as well. For some clients, there'll be multiple activities. They might participate in multiple classes. So let's get back to client services. Let's say for this same client, we're going to open professional recertification. All right, for professional recertification, let's open that field. Let's see, service start date. Ordinarily, you wouldn't have this going on at the same time as vocational training, but it's possible. But for the purposes of training in the RDC, we're just going to go ahead and put it within this similar time range. Oops, beg your pardon. You'll notice a warning flag has come up, values required. That's for case manager. Always remember you have to indicate the case manager when you're opening up a new service for someone. Okay, now we can save. Okay, so we've got professional recertification. Service start date, April 1st. That's when you do the intake, same as vocational training. You've done the intake, you've made a plan regarding their training, in this case, their goals of recertification, the steps that are going to be involved. You would put a service close date for professional recertification and vocational training when those planned steps have all either the client has stopped participating for some reason, or you've actually completed those services. You can put a service close date, like the client has decided to no longer participate, or they have completed everything and you're closing out that service. But it's very important to put service close dates as well as the start and end of particular activities, as you saw under vocational training. So let's go into this section regarding certification program. Let's see what we have in the drop-down options that you've already created back in the admin section. Dental hygienist, okay. Name of certification. Oops, what is this? Value required. Well, we haven't completed this program. Dental hygienist. Very good. Got the service close date, service start date, date completed all planned recertification activities, and you can also put receive certification and no, not yet. Very good. Now, we're going to go back to search clients to find another client regarding on-the-job training. Let's see. Actually, one more thing. Under dental hygienist, we do want to have activities. So activity description. That could be something you could provide under recertification, having their academic evaluations evaluated, translated and evaluated. This is where you would mark down activities such as that. So we'll choose that one. And we'll put down starting April 4th. Okay. Now, let's say you have completed the evaluation of the credentials. And we'll say today. It's very important to put end dates on all your activities. Any activity that you have a start date, you need to have an end date in the system. And in reason, it's a completed activity. And create. Excellent. All right. Now, We'll go back to clients. And we're going to do OJT. Let's say it's with a new client. Miller. Search clients. No search results found. We're going to add this client. Okay, alien number. Oops, beg your pardon. That's in the search field. Many users will find that could be confusing. The first thing that pops up every time is the search client field. So even when you're adding a new client, you hit that, it brings down this section of the intake. So alien number. Intake date. Oops. Let's say October 4th, 2014. Last name, Miller. Steve Miller. Anderson Lane. Let's see. Okay. On. We're just putting anything. Okay. You know what? Maybe easier just to do this. Male, single, active, head of household, NA, cash assistance, and we'll put none. And for the dates, we'll put the day that we did intake. Okay. Immigration status, refugee. And date of arrival, termination, start date. Okay, and save. Take page 2. Let's say they were resettled in Texas. Let's say USCCB is a resettlement BOLAG. The rest of these screens are optional except for health insurance. We'll put unknown, and we can hit save. Oh, employed. Let's say at the time of intake, they were not employed. Save. Okay, let's go to services. And go to on-the-job training, OJT. Oops, I think I just went over it. Here we go, RSS, on-the-job training, add new service. On-the-job training. Now we indicate a case manager. Eligibility start date, 10/1. Service start date for on-the-job training. let's say after you did your needs assessment, service plan, etc., which we did not log in on the service screen. We need to go back to that. Service start date. Save. Okay, so we've got on-the-job training. Same as the vocational training, professional recertification. You've got a service close date where you would indicate when they no longer participate in on-the-job training, whether it be they dropped out of it, they completed it, etc. Date all planned OJT services were completed. That's when they actually have completed whatever on-the-job training, subsidized training that was agreed to in their plan. Employed full-time after OJT. In the on-the-job training program, that is a period of subsidized training where your agency pays part of the client's wages at a job placement, where you have a signed agreement with an employer that regarding the employment of that client at that site, how much the employer is going to pay as far as their wages, how much your agency is going to pay as part of the RSS on the job training agreement, the hours, the length of training, how long that subsidized employment/training period is going to end. There should be an on-the-job training plan signed by your agency, by the client, and by the employer, where it's all written out, mutually understood, how long that training period is, what the wages are during that period, and with the understanding that if the client completes this subsidized employment and training period successfully, there's an understanding that the employer will hire full-time that client upon successful completion of that training period. So, the activity description, drop-down menu, well, we don't have anything at that site, so we'll have to go back to admin, and under activities, let's see, class, on the job training. In this case, it's going to be the name of the employer. Let's see. We can fill in the instructor later. Could change. And start date, we'll say that that started at as an available training source then, back in March. Okay, now going back to client. Service start date, activity description. It's not accepting it. Well, we'll be able to go back and add that later. We'll just start with this for saving. This is where you'll be able to enter the information regarding that activity. We'll have to make some changes here to make it available for your use. Total wages hourly, that's how much the client is going to be paid by that employer, including the amount that is subsidized or added into by your agency. The subsidy amount is how much of their salary or their wages you're paying. The employer, end date, start date, end date for that training period at that employer, and end reason. add new activity, create, cancel. So for right now, we'll just save this service start date for on-the-job training. After the activities are completed, and there can be more than one, but typically for on-the-job training it's one, you would go back in for service close date, date all plan OJT services are completed, employed full-time after OJT, and the date they were employed full-time. Now, you would go back into the job placement services module for this client regarding full-time employment for that job placement. And that, for information on how to handle data entry into the job placement services module, you could go to that job placement services module training, which is in a separate section of this RDC. So as always, if you have any questions regarding on-job training, vocational training, professional recertification, and the use of those in the RDC, please feel free to contact OIRA, and we'll be glad to assist you.